Would you guys want to suddenly be gifted a 1,000-year lifespan? All of a sudden, you and only you get to live 1,000 years?
Absolutely not. I joke with my wife all the time that I don't want to live past 75. I feel like my best years are then. Just let it go.
Okay, I have a question. Because of course I do. Yes to living 1,000 years. I think that would be badass and cool. Give me a lot of chance to read and play video games. And see what the next gen is. Sure, why not? Do you age normally so you end up being like a scrotum? Or like do you just...
No.
Or like your vampire, like Anne Rice vampire, you are the same age.
What is this episode on, Dan?
Well, it's on elves, so you're like pretty and elegant for...
Yeah.
Okay.
You are at your physical peak. So whatever that is for like, Dan's like, oh, I'm 12 again.
I never had a physical peak.
Yeah. I wonder when that magical day will come.
No, but seriously, you are at your healthiest, your youngest. There's no crow's feet, there's no bald spot, there's no gray hair, there's no ear hair.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
But it's only you, right? You're watching all your loved ones die around you. Everyone else cripples and gets old in 75 to 100 years. And you never change it.
You get to do that at least 10 more times.
We should ask Keanu Reeves how he does it.
Right? I would absolutely 100% do it. I would totally do it.
Would you stay in the shadows, or would you become some sort of ruler of man, unkillable by the ravages of time?
Well, you're not immortal, right?
3 words for you. Raz Al Ghul.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, that's
3 syllables?
That's 3 syllables.
It's also 3 words.
2 words. There's an apostrophe in there that connects them.
No, there's an apostrophe that connects Raz because it's R-A-apostrophe-S. I know Batman. Stay out of my fucking fandom.
Isn't there half a hyphen in there?
You're half a hyphen. So, you're at least a semicolon. So, anyway, the point is
a full colon.
That I would 100% totally...
Thanks, I am the shit.
A shit. There's a difference. I would absolutely 100% do that so that I could do things like put money in a bank and let it grow interest for 500 years and then change the direction of, I don't know, starving peoples, something like that. Like, you can do real good if you had time.
You could do real evil if you had time too.
Yeah, but I don't think I would do real evil. I would do superficial semi-evil.
I wonder how that would affect you, though. All those years watching the world go by, if that would mess with your mind.
Let me ask you something. What did you have for breakfast yesterday? What did you have for breakfast 3 weeks ago?
Good question.
Okay. Can you remember the name of every single person that was in your grade 3 class?
I can't remember anybody's names.
So,
who are you?
I'm not worried about my memory. Like, elves have like almost perfect memories.
Yes, they do.
And that really affects them. We're going to talk about that. But for me, no, I'm not going to remember any of this shit. By the time that I'm 300 years old, I've probably forgotten my
You'll remember sagas. You'll remember seasons, right? It's more that sort of thing. And watching people die. Do you eventually go jaded? Do you?
No, I don't think so, because you would be experiencing things again, and there would be, I don't know, echoes of long lost memories and whatnot.
At what point does everything become deja vu?
I don't know where I am right now, let alone if I've been here before.
At what point does your morality slip because you stop losing perspective because you have such a long life?
Yeah.
Like you say you do objectively good things, but,
I think that, I know where you're going with this. I think that if you're an immortal creature from an immortal race, then your morality would slip because you have a people's. If you were the only one, I think you get Superman syndrome. I am the protector of. I am unique and the rules don't apply to me, but they do apply to everyone else. So I will enforce the rules and uphold the rules.
But at what point do you decide what the rules are? And you start to change what the rules are.
Around year 200, and you start to engineer it so that your rules are good.
You start to see things, and maybe the rules I thought were the right rules aren't as good as I think. Maybe we'll try it this way.
I don't think that your memory would be able to hold true long enough. I think that our wisdom kind of taps it. Look, there's a difference between the wise and old master and actual old people who are just batshit fucking crazy. Right? And so, like, I am being, like, tongue in cheek with this, but how many old wizened masters are there in every nursing home?
No, none.
Right. So, honestly, how much can the human mind handle? Right.
Well, you gotta think if the body's immortal, the mind must have to adapt as well. You're not gonna lose your mind at 100.
I would hope so. I mean, that's the other thing is what happens if you're just like, you lose a leg at 23.
Yeah. Well, prosthetics should hopefully be improving over the next couple 100 years.
I'm just going to lop off the other one and be known as the like Toad Man.
Just sitting.
Toad Man, yeah.
Park yourself at the top of a mountain and wait for people to come up and seek your sage wisdom and then just tell them to screw off.
And they'll be like, no, Adam, we're on 7th edition now. You need to update. All right.
Welcome to It's a Mimic with your DMs, Adam, Dan, and
Brad.
Welcome to another episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, the roundtable Dungeons and Dragons discussion where you never know what you're going to get. I'm Adam, and with me are Brad and Dan, and today we're talking about elves. Now, elves are probably the most famous fantasy race in existence. It's going to be elves and dwarves. They're right up there, and we can thank Lord of the Rings for that.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, halflings are as well, but they're known as hobbits to the average person, right? So,
Orcs and goblins to a lesser extent as well.
yeah, but I think that your goblins are going to be, and even, you know what? I say elves, but my mother's going to think of a Keebler elf, right?
Oh.
And people are going to think of like,
Well, garden gnomes in that case.
yeah, mythology goblins, and orcs are pretty much orcs, right?
Yeah.
But,
Uruk-hai, though, are pretty...
yeah, but I mean, that's specifically Lord of the Rings. So, I mean, elves are, if you have seen Lord of the Rings, if you're familiar with Tolkien's work, or you're familiar with the fantasy genre at all, then you have a good handle on what a D&D elf is. But there's some specifics that I found surprising. So I'm going to just blow through them really quickly, and well, as quickly as I possibly can.
I've seen your notes.
Yeah, buckle up. But let's kind of launch into this because I thought that elves would be the most boring race that we were going to do, which is why I'm like, hey, let's do them first and get them out of the way. And I found a couple of things in it that I went, oh, there's actual merit here besides just look at me, I'm pretty and I have a bow, right? Which is
I am 100% with you. I would never wanted to play an elf, and then I was preparing for this episode, and I have a great character idea that I'm stoked about. We'll talk about later.
In 20-something years of D&D, have never played an elf once.
no.
I've never had a desire to, but all of a sudden today,
never once.
now I do.
Dan will know from my DMing style that I don't even put them in my campaigns very often. They sit over there.
The one elf that we've had in the campaign that was very, very involved and mobile was a sea elf.
Yeah.
Right? And that was it. It wasn't even like a traditional elf.
Because they were never interesting to me. But as I'm about to go over, they've got some shit to them. So.
Yeah, for sure. Sure do.
So elves are a little ethereal. They're fairly stoic and they're often standoffish. They're known for being artistic, nature-loving hunters that can be found in the parts of the world that are known for being naturally beautiful, just like they are. They're long-lived, they're slight of build, and they're roughly human height, although they tend to be a little shorter on average.
That part surprised me. I always picture elves as being taller than humans.
Yeah, Dan
in the
corrected-
6 to 7 foot range.
Dan corrected me on that like a year ago, where I'm like, oh, the average elf at like 6'5", and he's like, no, 5'5".
They're generally shorter than humans, can be as tall as.
The thing that, and I think this is what the movies have done a bit of a disservice to what elves were in the Lord of the Rings universe. Like you watch the animated Lord of the Rings and they are short, they're ugly, they are a little otherworldly looking. They don't look just like pretty humans with pointy ears and very straight hair.
They just look Scandinavian in the movies, right?
But they
Tall,
just
blonde,
look
and
beautiful Scandinavian people in the movies. So like they definitely do a switch there.
Yep. But I mean, like, there's some things that we can all agree on no matter what version. They have pointy ears and they still do in D&D. They can be old and wise, living up to nearly 750 years. But they're also quick and dexterous.
Yeah.
So their complexions have great ranges from pale white to deep black, depending on the subrace. But they're also sometimes described as being metallic in some cases, with copper, bronze, and silver often being referenced to their physicality, whether it's skin tone or hair or eyes. Their hair actually can be any color that a human has, or even green or blue, which is a little treasure troll for me, and I don't think I would do that. And then I start thinking about things like sea elves and Eladrin, and it kind of opens it up a little more.
Yeah.
They're nearly hairless below the eyebrows, and males don't grow facial hair.
How many people overlook that one?
Nobody. I think everybody is like, if there's an elf that has facial hair, at least me as a player, I go, what? That's a half elf. Like that's what the human taint in Elven blood
what's
does.
that? Say that again?
The human taint in Elven blood does that. You guys are gross. It gives elves facial hair.
Bloody taint. So they also tend to dress in deep natural colors or in bright, vibrant colors, and they're masters of fine, thin metalwork, which is something I think that is also overlooked quite a bit. When you think of jewelry, you think of dwarves and gnomes.
I think Lord of the Rings did that a little bit with the finely crafted elven blades. I've kind of always associated.
But have you ever seen an elven blacksmith? Like an elven smithy?
Yeah.
Right? So it's not, they don't, while it is definitely part of their culture, it's not really seen as often, right? Because of their long lifespans, they tend to focus on becoming masters of their crafts, almost to the point of arrogant obsession. And they can also lose perspective on the immediacy of how other races might prioritize issues of great importance. They also hold beauty and nature in high esteem, and most types of elves tend to avoid underground or urban settings if they can help it, although they are adept adventurers and explorers and have more than enough time to dabble in other cultures if it amuses them. So they definitely fall into wanderlust, and they avoid the standard rigid workday of other societies, thinking that it's both very confining on the day-to-day, but also very limiting on the overall lifespan. What can you accomplish in 60 years doing the same thing day after day after day, right? And yet somehow they're surprised by what humans and the shorter lifespan creatures can do.
Yeah.
They're slow to anger. They rely on diplomatic solutions over violent ones, but they're very capable in a fight. Ancient fey magics flow through their veins, and their extensive pantheon of gods is both rich and uncompromising. Those gods are very specific. These are not tricksters. You can't really sway the alignment of one of the elven gods. They are very rigid in how they perceive the world.
Mm-hmm. Hence why elves are so rigid.
Yeah, and even though they have like real proof that they're descendants of the god Corellon, they have a very strained and cold relationship with him and the other gods to a lesser extent. Although there are many elven clerics and druids, they tend to have a particular affinity for the arcane magics, and elven wizards and bards are more common than clerics and druids. Mm-hmm. There is an intense backstory with one of the subraces called Dark Elves or Drow, which we're going to cover in a future episode, and as a result, elves will never be allowed back into the embrace of their god. And so we'll go over that in another time. We don't have time to get into it in this episode. The story roughly goes that once the elves were removed from the strife with the Drow and the grace of their gods, they spread out through the multiverse and explored the planes. But the first place they went was the Feywild, which was teeming with magic and life and joy, and they stayed there for eons, to the point where it started to imbue them with its own magic and wellspring of life.
Yeah.
Eventually they moved on, but aspects of the Feywild still flow through their veins today. Because of their magical bend and their skills with hunting and gardening and nature, they don't need to depend upon agriculture like some of the other races, and they would rather leave the forests and jungles intact. Industrialization is a horrible concept to elves, and machines seem very foreign and like nearly blasphemous to them. It's said that when an elf dies, their soul is actually taken by the other elven gods, not Corellon, for a brief rest and given the opportunity to contemplate Corellon's cold shoulder before they're reincarnated. Which is real sad if you stop and think about it.
Yeah.
Therefore, births and deaths are very few in elven society and very bittersweet. Even the births are bittersweet. Strangely, when elves notice a great swelling in births among their numbers, they see it as a blessing from their gods, but also an omen that a great catastrophe is going to befall elven kind, and many elves will be needed to stand against it. But then on the flip side, a long period with no births may indicate that the current civilization is cursed and stagnant, and the community will dissipate and disband from there. Because of the rarity of births, there are very few siblings, and when there are siblings, there are very few of them. There tends to be long gaps between ages, and twins and triplets are incredibly rare, and they're considered to share an important destiny, and they're like soul-bound almost. Elves reach maturity sometime after their 100th birthday, declaring themselves to be adults when they feel they are ready, which is kind of fun.
And very millennial.
When this happens, they choose a new name for themselves, although they will still respond to their childhood name if someone who knew them back then still uses it affectionately now. So,
Yeah. It's like how there's only certain people who I allow to call me Danny.
My mom did that to you the other day, and I twitched. I'm like, who? Oh, shit, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Male and female names are really very similar. And their last names are family names that are usually made up of combinations of elven words. And it's very difficult, I think, at first glance to be able to tell a male and female elf, if you are not already familiar with their culture and the signifiers of clothing and jewelry and whatnot. So, elves can be seen as arrogant and rude sometimes, but they do give credit where credit is due. They don't always respect a dwarf's intelligence, but they do acknowledge their bravery and smithing abilities. Halflings are seen as pleasantly simple allies who are compassionate and not to be underestimated. And humans seem frantic and boorish, but their ambitions are recognized as being impressive considering their short lifespans. Elven societies can often have a deep undercurrent of wistful sadness to them because of their incredible memories and the long periods of meditation that they have and their distance from Corellon. So they meditate on why their god doesn't like them for centuries.
Super depressing.
Yeah. They also see the world in the rigid concept of good and evil and uphold their own versions of justice. Because they believe in reincarnation, elves see the tragedy of death to actually be more horrifying for family and loved ones than for the deceased, as these are the people that must stay behind to remember that loss for centuries. So it's when somebody dies, we don't feel bad that their life is over because they'll come back. Mm-hmm. We feel bad for everybody else that has to live on without.
Everyone's stuck behind.
Exactly. This sometimes makes them very cold towards the concept of loss, but they feel their emotions very deeply behind their calm exteriors. If you're looking for more specific details on elves, you can check out our conversation with Corellon and his fight with Grumsh, the orc god, in our orc episode. And you can hear about blade singers in an upcoming episode we'll be doing on more wizard subclasses, because that one is specifically geared towards elves, and only elves can be blade singers. We may someday also cover gods and pantheons, and if we do, if that day ever comes, the story of Corellon and the other elven gods will definitely be a centerpiece. So for now, though, that's pretty much going to wrap up the lore around elves. Now, there are basically the last thing about them is their location, their geography, where they are located in the world, often dictates which subrace they are. Think about Eladrin in the Feywild, High Elves in shining cities, Wood Elves obviously in forests, Sea Elves are, surprise, surprise, in rivers, in water, Drow are in the Underdark, Shatterkai are in the Shadowfell, and there are more too. There are Dusk Elves that are in Barovia, and like there are even more, but those ones that I listed first those are the playable races. So we're only going to go through a few of them this time round, but first let's look at the base elf, what I've just described.
Yeah.
As a general rule, that's true of most good aligned elves except for Drow and Shatterkai, right? So
that's right.
When you choose to play an elf, you get immediately +2 to your dexterity, just because they are that much more agile than a human is. Yeah. They're usually between 100 and 400 years old. They can be less than 100, but they're still considered a child technically. They can be over 400, but they're beyond middle-aged. And honestly, who's not playing someone in their 20s, right? It's a very, very common thing to play a kind of new adult when you're an adventurer.
Someone's just stepping into the world of adventuring.
Yeah. They tend towards chaotic good because they really like freedom and they really like life, although some subraces may vary drastically. Mm-hmm. They're medium-sized with a base walking speed of 30 feet. They've got 60 feet of dark vision, which allows them to see in normal darkness, but only in shades of gray.
50 of them.
50 Shades of... Oh, my God. Terry just smiled and he doesn't know why. It's probably because he just got an erection. He doesn't know why.
Usually it's 50 Shades of Grey related.
Yeah.
He needs to read a chapter every time just to...
Like Terry can read. He's got the audio.
He just watches the movie.
So elves are proficient in the perception skill because of their amazing physical awareness. And they have advantage on saving throws against being charmed because of their ancient Fey ancestors. Elves also gain the benefit of not needing to sleep. They still require rest, and they meditate in semi-consciousness for 4 hours a day instead of requiring 8 hours of sleep. And I'm going to come back to that in a second. But first I want to talk about languages. They're fluent in both Common and Elvish, and they can read it and write it as well as speak it flawlessly. But Elvish is a very special language. It's lyrical and beautiful and is much loved by poets, bards, and scribes, although the grammatical rules can be dense and overwhelming at first. Their own literature and music is renowned and beautiful if you understand the subtle intricacies of it. It is considered to be the most beautiful of the regular languages. Probably Celestial is going to challenge that, but those are really the two most...
It's D&D's version of Latin.
Well, kind of.
Italian.
You guys jumped the gun because I wanted to ask you guys. Okay, so because you got there first, which language is it?
Oh, it's going to be the most beautiful, sexy language. Italian.
Spanish.
Well, it's one of the romantic languages.
It's a romantic,
it's a romantic language for sure.
It's not German.
Yeah.
It's not Swedish.
Yeah, but
Orca. I want to make a Swedish chef.
we have a lot of Swedish listeners, actually, so, like, be kind.
And Singapore.
I know, we just found out
we're like number 6 in Singapore.
Yeah, we are trending on the Apple Podcast in Singapore.
Maybe Elvish is...
Maybe. Is from Singapore?
Maybe. Know what? The Burmese language is also very beautiful and lyrical, and
I picture it being very sing-songy, right?
Yeah.
Not just
have you guys seen Bollywood, like, movies and whatnot? Like, that's really beautiful and lyrical as well.
But then the spoken language is very...
Parts of it, but like, there are different dialects as well, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting. I mean, I'm a lit nerd, so I have an idea of English itself used to pull words like rendezvous and whatnot from other languages, specifically because they liked the idea of it. And the idea of adding U's or removing them was trendy when being able to write was a trendy thing. And the idea of an S or a Z in words like memorize or hypnotize, depending on where you live in the world, English will spell things differently, is all based on, weirdly, memes and trends of, like, the 17th and 18th.
Gray or gray.
Yeah, right. Whether it's
roof or roof.
Terry or Turry. Whether or not it's Harry Podler, right? Yeah, I'm going to say it's probably a romantic language.
Oh, 100%. And because of its age, I could see why you would say Latin, because it is one of the foundational languages of the world as well. It has been around for ages.
It's not Hebrew.
Elves.
But I don't think it's Latin though, because how many ancient forgotten languages exist in D&D? And those to me are Hebrew and Latin
But there is a form of Elven that is old and dead as well. That has been, at least in Forgotten Realms lore.
It would certainly have Latin roots.
That has then come back forward, and the common Elvish language, like the modern Elvish language, is an echo of that ancient one.
Which is why I would say that it's the European, right? I don't know enough about the Asian languages, Southeast Asia. Yeah. Some of them are really freaking beautiful. I absolutely love some of them, and others I think sound like nails on chalkboard, right? The same way that there are, like, English dialects that I'm not a big fan of, right? There are definitely people from some places that I go, oh, I know where you're from, please stop speaking.
It's like trying to read Scottish Twitter. Sorry, did I just invent all the Scottish listeners? How many of those have you got?
Quite a few, actually. I love you guys.
So, I've read Scottish Twitter. It's fucking
It is one of my favorite Scottish Twitter. How do you read it? It is one of my favorite subreddits. Is Scottish people Twitter.
Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, I would say that it's probably the Romantic languages with the base in Latin, right? So, I mean, that makes a certain amount of sense. But I want to swing back for a second about the sleep.
Yes.
The meditation. 4 hours of meditation equals 8 hours of sleep. You will notice that this is not directly translated to a short or long rest in the language. You still need 8 hours of rest. You don't need 4 hours of rest and then you go off for hunting. You need 4 hours of trancing or meditating. You still need another 4 hours of rest.
That's what translates substitutes for sleep, not for...
Right, exactly. So the 4 hours would get rid of exhaustion levels,
yes.
right? But they're not going to regenerate your spell slots or heal you back up.
The other way to look at this is there is a warlock invocation that means you do not need to sleep anymore, but you still need to maintain 8 hours of restful activity, whether they are, keeping watch or reading a book. It's that kind of same thing with the trance. There's a trance where you are still even kind of semi-aware of what is around you when you trance. But it is like a subconscious level.
Yeah, no,
it is nice for keeping watches though on those long rests.
Yeah, if you've got an elf around, guess who's taking first and third? Yeah, right.
Yeah, because they're semi-conscious as well, right? Mm-hmm. Even when they are trancing, they're relatively aware. I would say that stealth checks have a higher percentage of working against them. They maybe have disadvantage on perception while they are trancing, they normally they have proficiency in perception anyway.
Yeah.
So you're gonna mitigate that a little bit and still give them that little bit of benefit for it. But it's interesting to me that I think a lot of tables play. You're an elf. You only need 4 hours for a long rest, and that's wrong.
Yes.
You need 4 hours to sleep, downtime.
To get rid of your exhaustion levels.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, it's not usually an issue unless you're running a full party of elves anyways.
Yeah. So, okay, when you guys think of elves, what do you think of? Let's roll initiative on this.
All right.
I got a 13.
15.
18.
All right, Dan, when you think of elves, when someone says D&D elves, what is the first thing that pops into your mind?
Thank you for adding the qualifier, because the first thing that pops into my mind is cookies.
That's true of every topic, though.
Yeah. Can you tell I'm on a diet? No. Honestly, as much as the version of elves in Lord of the Rings does kind of irk me in the movie, that is the kind I think of. And very specifically, I funny enough, think of Elrond. Like, he is the quintessential elf in my mind, even though he's a half-elf by nature.
Yes, he is.
But, like, he is what I see elves as. I don't quite, like, Galadriel and, like, those very, like, high and regal elves are too supernatural for me for an elf. Like, they are just that extra, a bit too Fey-like for that. Like, I see Galadriel more Eladrin than I see her,
yeah, I get behind that.
Right? Elrond is down to earth, and he's got a long view, but he is intensely wise, and he will tell you if you are doing something wrong. And I think,
and without any,
and without reservation, right? And his memory is perfect.
Yeah.
So when I think of elves, when I think of Dungeons and Dragons elves, I think of Elrond, right? There is a part of me that also gets conflicted with, like, Christmas movie elves.
Will Ferrell?
No. Like, the elf that wanted to be a dentist. I forget the name of the movie.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, you fuck.
Never seen it. I'm kidding.
Oh my god. You have children, you have seen it. But, like, there's a part where, okay, they're small, they're craftsmen, and they have an almost unbridled amount of joy that only really they can translate and understand amongst themselves. So there's a little bit of that as well. So I like the fact that their art is delicate and intricate, and you could tell it takes a lot of time because they have the time to do it. Right? So when I think of elves, I think Elrond, I think of beautiful architecture, beautiful weaponry, delicate, like, metal work, and Keebler elves.
Brad?
I actually go the other way, still Lord of the Rings, very Legolas.
Right.
But I go two ways. I either go Druid or Ranger. If I was rolling a Elven character, that would be my first thought is, okay, I want a druid or I want a ranger. They're of the woods. They understand nature. They're in tune with nature. Nature is very much tied with them. When a tree burns, they burn. That's the way I see elves. I see them very,
very nature-based,
entwined with nature.
Yeah.
You know, I agree with you. I did that for the longest time until I started running, not the campaign that I'm doing right now, but the one before that. I had 2 elves in the party. They were both wood elves, and it was and one was a monk and one was a ranger, right?
Yep.
They leaned right into it, and it was okay, but I started to do a little bit of research. And I now think of elves as the childlike empress from the Neverending Story.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Right? In that pearl palace, that ethereal, and she steps forward and she's a childlike empress, not a child. Childlike. And so, like, nearly immortal, this kind of long view, we need you to save the world, like they're the quest giver, kind of removed from society. And the other thing that backs that up again,
they're not the ones doing the work themselves. They're employing agents.
Yeah, and I see that when they do the work, when they actually get their hands dirty, it is a big freaking deal that they're doing it, like like Helm's Deep, right?
Yeah,
right. Yes,
but the big thing that I think of that supports that in Lord of the Rings, that kind of long view and the pearly towers and all that, is the riddle on the secret door to the Mines of Moria, right? That is elf magic, and that is quintessential perfect elf magic to me. Of by the moonlight, you can see this one riddle that makes sense in elvish, right? Like, and that is just perfect for elves. They're more concerned about their place in the world, and I think that matters because of they don't know their place with Corellon.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're very concerned with how they interact with the world around them, and how other people affect our society, how you affect me. Right. I care less about how I affect you.
Yeah.
How do you affect me?
Or what can you do for me?
Yeah. And that sounds selfish, but I think that's also,
they realize you're not going to be around that long. So if you die,
well, it's like your opinion of them doesn't really matter to them, because I'll outlive you and you will be a memory.
Yeah.
Right? But your opinion of you matters greatly to them. Their legacy is what's important to them.
Yeah. And again, because they're so long lived and they have so few children, the concept of legacy is so important.
Yeah.
When there's an elf father, when you have the Elrond to Arwen relationship, that's huge in a D&D setting.
Absolutely.
Right? Which is why he was so adamant about do not become mortal. Do not give him your love. It will go sour and wrong, and don't do that, because you should stay with the elves and live an elvish life.
Do you guys know a little bit, how much of Lord of the Rings lore do you, this plays in very specifically to this. How much do you guys know, like, the background?
I read the Silmarillion once, like 10 years ago, so it's faint.
I'm pretty well versed.
So you know that Elrond he's got a brother.
Yeah.
Who is also a half elf.
Correct.
Who Elrond chose to maintain his immortality. His brother, Elrin, chose to be mortal and started Numenor. He's the first king of Numenor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, I didn't know that until I read the Silmarillion again, and it blew that entire interaction between him and Arwen just wide open, because he's got experience seeing his brother make that decision.
I'll take it a step further. He's a half elf. One of his parents died when he was very, very young. And yet, his memory probably is crystal clear of the moment they died as well.
Yeah.
And the sadness that followed him as a result.
Moments they had in the 35 to 50 years probably before.
Yeah. And so, anyway, there's a sadness. There's a melancholy aspect to elves. So, do they interest you as a player specifically? Why or why not? Dan, you rolled highest. Would you play an elf as a character? Does this new, like, expansion of their lore and a better look at it, besides just pointy ears, owns a bow, makes cookies?
No. Elves, unfortunately to me, elves are they're one of the most bland not bland. I understand they have a rich history, and I understand there's lots you could do with them. I understand that a lot of Dungeons and Dragons lore is devoted to, here's what the elves did for millennia, right? And we'll get back to dwarves later. But I understand all of that, but I like playing big, strong characters, big, strong characters like half-orcs and Goliaths, or I play small, smart characters like gnomes or the occasional halfling. I very rarely play a high dexterous character.
I'm going to point something out to you. Okay, that's very true.
Yeah.
Right? And when I think elves, I think agility, I think dexterous.
Well, the +2 dexterity would probably do that.
I want to point out to you, though, that I'm going to guess here, favorite, I'm putting words in your mouth, character that you've played in the last few years has been a dragonborn named Rezu, who has a personal relationship with his god, who has an extended long life, is old and wise, and is willing to take his time to see things through, and is very elf-like in a lot of ways, except for the 6 in dexterity.
Except he's got a 6 in dexterity.
Because he's an old man.
Because he's an old man and like carries around a chair in his pocket that he has to open up whenever the conversation's going too long. Which with him,
but
the conversation
play an older elf that same way.
goes too long.
But the perspective, the worldview.
I love the worldview. I don't like the flavor, for me, of elves.
Mechanically?
No, I don't care about trancing. I don't care about, what do your elven eyes see? Every other race, or 2 out of 3, has some version of keen sight.
And dark vision.
And dark vision.
Everybody
right?
has dark vision.
Right?
Yeah.
And we'll get into how high elves are more wizardy and
sure, yeah, we'll cover that
and all that other stuff later. But they don't
inspire you.
They don't inspire me. They feel played out to me. And of course, someone in the party is going to be an elf, so I don't have to be, because someone is going to be an elf.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And they're just not for me. It's my personal taste, and it's because I can't get in that headspace.
Yeah, Brad?
I guess I'm next. Before we were preparing for this episode, I would have said, no, I'll never play an elf. There's so many other options. Like you said, elves are played out. You've seen enough of them. You know what they are. They don't really hold anything new. Mm-hmm. Nothing new is brought to the table with elves. In preparing for this episode specifically, that has totally changed my mind. I have a couple character concepts that I think I would do different for an elf, because I didn't want to play an elven ranger. I didn't want to play an elven druid. It felt played out.
Yeah.
But going through backstory, history, even just going through the characteristics, I've had some really great ideas, and I could see myself playing an elf. It wouldn't be my first choice, but I think I could certainly see
you actually bring another thing to my mind about elves that I don't like. I don't like how long they live. We mentioned Rezu is old. And artificially old, right? Dragonborn are supposed to die at 80. And it's something he struggles with. And it's something he struggles with. I don't like the fact that if I retire, I'm good for another 800 years. I'm good for another 700 years if I retire right now. Right? I don't like that idea. I like the idea of getting...
I don't see an elven character retiring, though.
I don't see it.
In fact, a lot of the ideas I have for...
That's the other thing. I find it difficult to find a drive to an elven character because they have such a long view of things.
But they get that wanderlust.
They get the wanderlust. Yeah, I get exploration. Yes, I understand. But why would they give a crap about that one despot in this one country in the corner of nowhere?
Because they can see how it's going to play out.
Let me finish. Because in 100 years, in 150 years, in 200 years, there's going to be just another despot in that other spot doing another thing. And it's just going to be a cycle, and let the humans deal with themselves because they're the humans.
Yeah, but okay, I'm with you to a point, and that's why I don't see elves meddling in human affairs. But elves will meddle in dragon affairs.
Yes.
Okay? A long-lived elf requires a long-lived enemy.
Yes.
The necromancer, the lich. The elves will deal with Sararak, right? They're going to deal with Tiamat. These are the level of threats. They're not dealing with the halfling pumpkin patch that went rotten, which is what honestly, that's a level 1 plot hook for a little bit there, right? Elves, an elf would not give a shit. I'm totally with you on that, Dan.
An elf could give a shit if they were building a party to go against the
I
bigger
also
thing.
have difficulty with rolling a level 1 elf.
I don't...
You start at level 100, how are you only level 1?
Well, not level 100, but...
So you start at 100 years old, how are you level 1?
Because cultures are different. I'm sure that Europeans think it ridiculous that Americans are 21 years old and acting like drunken fools when they have a few beers. Because, bitch, we've been drinking wine since I was 12, and, you know, like, there are cultural differences definitely about when there is maturity. Yeah. And that's not even a physical difference. That's just a cultural one, right? Yeah. So I'm going to agree with you, Dan, on the fact that I find it hard to find the motivating factor of an elf unless it is the long
game.
Right. They're looking at the big picture. And so that's why I find it hard to play an elven fighter.
Yes.
Right? Unless they're going out there to... Okay, you know the other trope that drives me nuts in D&D? The basic one is, why are you here today? It's session 1. Who are you? I've left my village to get world experience. Man, just go masturbate in the corner and come back and you got something worth talking about. Right? That is just self-flagellation. Yeah. I am here to be better and to gain experience. Oh, that thing that we're supposed to collect in this game? Good for you, you dingus. Right? You've accomplished nothing. You fucking asshole. Bring an original thought to, but an elf, I think, at 100 years old, or maybe at 90 years old, is that elven fighter out there looking to get world experience. There's the wanderlust that has hit them. There's the concept of the long game, and they don't know what that looks like because they have lived the same lifespan as the Dragonborns and the Halflings and the humans and the Tieflings and so on and so forth. And they all got old and died, and I'm still here. What does that mean to my purpose in the world? And I think that's an interesting way of looking at it, at the idea of... So I started off with whether or not you guys want to live to be like 1,000 years old, right? That was the cold open. And I think that a lot of people would say yes, and then they realize that first time that you lose everyone, that is a midlife crisis unlike anything you've ever had before. Mm-hmm. And that midlife crisis is enough reason to go wanderlust. Right.
Yeah. Find your purpose in the world.
Exactly. Right. So,
elves are known for wanting to hone their skills, perfect their skills.
Yeah.
What better way to hone your skills in fighting, in combat, in problem solving, in even just social encounters than to go out, find a party. If they all die, big deal. You're going to lose some more anyways.
Yeah, and if they don't die and they become great allies, then we have something to move forward
You've done
with
something.
too, right? So something as simple as I'm here to collect magic items for the future.
Yep.
Right? What?
I'm here to gather experience.
But the idea, as well as, I like elven diviners that can kind of see the future a little bit.
Yeah.
And they're here for a very specific reason. I spoke a little bit about the diviner that just quote unquote knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I would be kind of smarmy about it as I played it. To say, oh, you got injured. I foresaw that, but. Right. And so, like, it had to happen in order for the next thing to happen.
All part of the greater plan, right? The greater good.
But I think that an elf may legitimately see that. An elven diviner would say for the greater good. And I also like, the thing we didn't touch on was their art and their poetry and their music, and an elven bard
totally
fits. Yeah. Right? And I really do like elves for bards. Not all bards.
No.
But I don't see an elven mastermind so much, or an elven swashbuckler doesn't really jive for me. No. But a college of lore.
I've read about, like,
there are going to be exceptions.
There are exceptions to the rule, but like, there's a character, Jarlaxle, who is a drow, who's still an elf, but he is very swashbuckler-like, and the way his character plays out in
drow are just radically different in their worldviews, though.
They're still long-lived, right? And they still have that.
We're going to fight about drow in a future.
Yes,
episode,
we are.
Okay,
but I'm saying in terms
stop saying the D word.
In terms of seeing a swashbuckler type character or a duelist or someone like that, I think an elf fits very well.
A duelist, yes. A swashbuckler, again. I mean, a sea elf, I guess.
Yeah, no, I still.
But that's a trope, right?
Yeah, I still don't see it for a duelist. I just don't see it for an elf who, like, these are bittersweet deaths, and their time away from Coralon is a punishment, and so on and so forth. They're not out there saying, I'm going to end that guy's life. I can see a half-elf definitely leaning into that. I can see a human doing it, or one of the shorter-lived, more reckless or ambitious races. But
you can see dueling as an art, right? Kind of like fencing, right? That's if I was picturing an elven duelist, it would be for the art of the fence, not so much about,
right? Like, he's not fighting to the death necessarily. He's fighting till the last blow.
Right. But when I'm thinking about an elven bard, I am thinking College of Lore, College of Glamour.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you College of Swords even, right? Because they are really good. I mean, Legolas is an archetype of elf, right? That tracks.
Yeah.
But as a player, I'm probably only going to pick an elf for the mechanical boons. So, and not for the flavor boons, because I think the flavor has written itself already, and like you guys say, it's been done to death. It's weird that elves are the first entry in the player's handbook. That it is the only time when Wizards of the Coast did not go in alphabetical order.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true.
Oh, it's all way out of order too.
Dwarf goes before.
Dwarves are first, man.
Okay, so are they first?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dwarf, it is alphabetical.
Yeah.
It is not alphabetical.
It's not.
Dragonborn?
Oh, well, they're not player's handbook. Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
they are.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. Halflings and gnomes are like in a weird spot. Half elves and half orcs are an afterthought. Like the player's handbook is a little bit wonky with that.
Yeah.
But okay, so they're second, but they're obviously like it's a fantasy game. It's elves, dwarves, and humans.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what we're playing here, and everybody knows it.
So would you play an elf?
No, I wouldn't. I'd grab it for a mechanical boon, and therefore, if I'm going to do that and focus only on mechanics, because they are overpowered compared to the other races. They get way more benefits than say a stock dragonborn or a stock tiefling or a stock gnome. Elves just have it all. Because we haven't even touched the subclasses yet. And they're already stacked.
Yeah, once you get to sub-races, it changes the whole game.
Yeah. So I wouldn't play them unless I'm going to play a one-shot or a short campaign. Mm-hmm. Then if I know I've got 6 sessions with this character, I will come in as an elf.
Yeah.
Because I want that mechanical boon and maybe that little bit of the distant far, maybe the arrogance, maybe the I don't understand you short-lived, you blips in the radar. And I want to understand, right? Like, I would be interested in dabbling with that. I don't want to put 3 years into a level 20 campaign with this. And I have trouble seeing an elf, like you say, Dan, bothering to do Dragon Heist.
Yeah.
Right? I can see Storm King's Thunder, sure.
Princes of the Apocalypse, yes.
Right? But the accidental nature of Curse of Strahd, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
Right? But I
pulled into it.
Yeah, but I don't see them doing some of the more mundane, smaller aspects.
Yeah. I think if I was to do an elf character, it'd be someone who I brought in maybe partway through a campaign as a guidance. Yep. And a character that I knew I was either going to kill off or retire.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, they're not going to do. Well, what else is there? Out of the Abyss? Oh, I'm sorry. Demogorgon is going to walk around the Underdark? Good. Fuck the drow. Right? Like, that's an elf, rather. That they're not going to get involved in that shit. They're not going to they would get involved in the Rise of Tiamat storyline.
Yeah.
They would get involved in the Dungeon of the Mad Mage.
They wouldn't get involved in Avernus.
They wouldn't get involved.
Avernus.
No, they would sit there and
that
be
city
like,
went missing? Okay.
That's unfortunate. But cities come and go and civilizations turn to dust. Right? And they wouldn't give a shit. And obviously, I mean, there are Ravnica and Eberron elves, and there are other versions. We're not touching on the campaign setting specifics. Don't have that kind of time. Because it's so radically different, right? Yeah. So, anyway, before we go to the commercial, would you guys use elves as a major set piece as a DM? Dan?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah? In what way?
Well, we've already said that they work wonders as quest givers, as lore givers, as expositors. Like, you want some exposition? Use an elf.
Yeah.
Right? Like, no one's gonna be, and like, that's all the way back to Lord of the Rings. Like,
Yes.
Elrond sitting around in the council of,
Elrond? The Council of
the
Elrond?
council of Elrond. Woof.
I
Like,
just want to let you hang.
more than half that is him delivering exposition.
Absolutely.
So, I would use them as that. And I would almost never use them as the elf has been kidnapped to go rescue it.
Oh, no.
Like, I don't see that.
The Elven princess has fallen in love with you? No.
I mean, it can happen. But
That's not my first. That's not where I want to go in this.
No,
I need to have a pretty new person that has never played D&D before. That is like, I just want to fall in love with an elven princess. I'm like, okay,
fine. Yes, sure. But as a person who's like, listen, 300 years ago there was an elf bard, and he played a lute made of solid gold, and it has been lost to time somewhere in the Neverwinter Wood. Go find it. Right? I'm not going to go do it, but I will pay you handsomely to go do it for me, because I have grapes to eat and wine to drink. So
you're a
Just to
halfling?
read.
You're a halfling then?
No, I'm saying like they're very like I feel elves, like if you're going to align them with a modern culture, Greek is also a good analog with them. They feel very Greek to me. So like ancient Greece. So yeah, I as a goal, no, as an exposition granter, yeah, I would.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, on the sending out of the quests. Even I would have the party be sent to find elven weaponry or armor, right? That will, as items that will help on their quest. Perhaps there is an elf who would pull them in. I really like the idea of actually coming across a party of elven rangers, warning of dangers ahead, but can't be bothered themselves to deal with it. Oh, by the way, we saw that. Yeah, wasn't an issue for us. Our city's well enough hidden and defended, they're not going to bother us, but if you want to take them on, go for it.
We're doing this as a kindness to you guys, because we find your little settlements here. This, what do you call it? Neverwinter? Oh, this is quaint and cute. And just so you know that there's a threat, we're going back to the woods now.
Yeah. Not even as a kindness, just as a, oh, you asked about it. Yeah, we saw it. Do what you will with it.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it a step further. You guys brought this up in the cold open. How long does your morality hold up before you go evil if you have 1,000 years? How long before the elves just say, look, everybody stop. You're cutting down trees to make fires to build machines so the orcs and the humans can fight it out generation after generation after generation. You're breeding like crazy across the land, and you're using up all of nature's gifts that they've given you. It is time for everyone to just die. And we will return the world to the elves, gnomes, and dwarves, and dragons, and the magical races that deserve to be here. Not you mundane, you mongrels. Get out.
Now, do they do it themselves, or do they manipulate the background?
No,
Yeah, there is a horde of elves coming out of the woods at like cities. They are springing out.
And the idea of there being 100 arrows that just come from the woods,
Just release.
and every one of them hits.
Yeah.
Right? That's terrifying.
Yeah.
The idea, like, you're not, you guys see Game of Thrones where
I've heard of it.
where he's
It's a great
shooting
7-season show.
where Ramsay is shooting at Rickon as Rickon is running.
Yeah.
Strafe, you idiot. Strafe.
Serpentine. but the idea of him missing 3 times,
Yeah.
that would never
Never
happen
happen
for an elf.
No, it's that scene from American Gods where that one Viking just gets pummeled with 400 arrows in a matter of
put
a
him
blink,
down.
right?
Yeah. And
Actually, I could see an elf missing intentionally 3 times to make you think you got away.
to make you stop and turn around and then
Yeah,
take it
so
in the
you can-
eye.
yeah.
Right? So I just see you, like, elves are so perfect.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I don't like about them is their perfection. And so I see that as a flaw and a character flaw. So let's have that character flaw be villainy. Right? Let's ramp it up to that level.
Yeah.
I like it.
Any final thoughts on base elves before we get into the sub races?
We have very only briefly touched on their love of the arcane as well. And this isn't just one of the sub-races specifically. All of the races, when they went to the Feywild, they not only fell in love with nature, but they fell in love with magic, and specifically arcane magic. And elves themselves, in previous editions, like in 3.5, their favored class was wizard.
You could only be a wizard if you were an elf in original D&D.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, they are long-lived. They are the ones who are going to have the most intricate spells. They're the ones that are going to have the most developed arcane schools. Like, the elven love of magic needs to be put. Like, magic in an elven city is
an elven library full of books of magic.
Things just float.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's no reason why.
Everything floats.
Everything floats in an elven city. And they are nature, but they're also the arcane. And I find with 5th edition, arcane is getting put into that Harry Potter realm where it's like, I was raised in this school and I'm civilized and look at me, I'm well read. And I don't think elves...
It's more Jedi Academy, man.
It's Jedi
sit in
Academy.
the dirt in your robes and lift that rock with your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? And that's why the concept of elf monk actually intrigues me as a character. That's about as far as I'll go. With that monastic kind of feel, that removed and
an elven cleric bothers me for that same reason.
Yeah.
Why would an elf be a divine spellcaster?
So why?
Well, there are many gods, and it is complicated, and we can cover that in a future episode.
Yes.
But they've got...
If they're arcane, why are they divine spellcasters?
Because they specifically know that their gods do exist. They have legit proof and have communicated with them. And they are bestowed gifts by these gods.
Yeah.
So it's not so much I pray to these gods as...
That god needs something from me.
It's almost a warlock patron relationship with an elf and their gods, right?
Yeah.
So it's not quite as pure as a human cleric of Heronius, right? So,
well, and that's the one thing I really wanted to bring up is the fact that elves make more sense to me as wizards. If you want to play that full spellcaster, you're playing a wizard.
But I mean,
you're not going to be. You might play sorcerer,
but druid
makes sense too,
right?
But I see them being a wizard more than I see them being a druid. Funny enough,
I don't see them being a warlock.
No, I was just going to say I
don't see them being a warlock at all.
Warlock.
I can see a paladin.
If we drop the D word, the drow warlock potentially, but just a pure elf, I can't see it.
I could see a moon elf being a little warlocky.
Sure,
like,
celestial.
We'll get there.
Yeah,
but we'll hit that in the next section. But like, there are definitely some that don't make sense. One of the things that I would really, really, really like to see is the elf that was removed from Elven society at birth and is raised a barbarian.
We'll touch on that. I've got something for that.
Yeah, you got something for that? I just like the idea of going counterintuitive on this.
Yeah.
See what we can do. Anyway, let's jump to a commercial.
Hey guys, Dan here with It's a Mimic. I'm here with Adam, and we have a couple exciting announcements to throw at you guys.
Yeah, we have a couple new social media sites that we're really happy and excited about being a part of, including TikTok, and we have our own subreddit now, which is r/It's a Mimic.
Yep, we're also starting a second channel that is going to be live play focused. It's going to be our actual play stuff, so it's going to be where you can find all of our old Call of Cthulhu, our Wizard's Tower, our Christmas special, as well as future projects coming down the pipe, like a new Call of Cthulhu.
Yes, we've got a couple of fun things coming with Call of Cthulhu this year, and we're already gearing up for it. So anyways, we've got these two channels, we've got this new social media, but what we would really like is to ask you guys for a little bit of help. We don't have a Kickstarter, we don't have a Patreon, we don't have a GoFundMe. We have a dinky little donations button down in the bottom of our website, but we're not even asking you for money right now. We're asking for your voices.
Yeah, so word of mouth is super important to get the word out on the new channel, the new social media outlets that we're engaging in now.
So if you could do more than just lend us your ears and lend us your voices as well, whether it's on Reddit or through our regular Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is, cross posts, links, whatever you can do to give us a hand here would help a lot. We are eternally grateful, and that's why we want to give you guys more of a voice as well, which we talk about in the shoutout and the campaign builder, and we'll be moving forward with more interesting ways of audience interaction as well.
So again, thank you guys so much for listening, and I don't know about you, Adam, I'm really excited for year 2 as we're moving on here.
Yeah, I really think hey, look,
God damn it, Adam.
Okay, so we're back from the commercial. There are many different sub-races of elves. and this is only the first part of our discussion on the sub-races. So today we're only covering Wood Elves, Sea Elves, and High Elves. Now, with the High Elves, there are two smaller sub-factions, the Sun Elves and the Moon Elves, but like mechanically speaking, they're identical. It's the flavor that's different.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, now, Brad, you've got Wood Elves.
Yes, I do.
Dan, you got the High Elves, both of them, and I've got Sea Elves. Let's roll initiative and talk about it. Let's take a look at it from the point of view of pitching this as the best option.
All right. Let's roll initiative.
All right, so I'm going first again.
Yeah.
That's a
Same
15
order as
to
before. Same order.
6 and 3 over there. Okay, so I got High Elves. High Elves are the most regal. They're the
420
most...
blaze it?
No, wrong kind of high.
Oh.
Yeah.
They're just really tall.
Is that the Wood Elves?
No, it's because they're on their high horses.
It's because they're on the high horses, yeah. They are the most... almost civilized if you go to like the Sun Elf version of them. They are... You said earlier that elves kind of tend toward chaos. High Elves are the ones that probably are a little bit more towards the law, especially in the Sun Elf category. Moon Elves are more neutral, if not chaotic themselves. But High Elves are the learned ones. They're the ones who are sitting in their cities removed. They exemplify arrogance to a sense as well. And their big concern is magic. They are...
I don't think it's just arrogance, though, right? There's a specific way of doing it. There's etiquette, and we will follow it. And if you don't follow the etiquette, you are obviously not as learned as we are. And we will teach you the proper way to do it. Pay attention. We're only going to say this once.
Or you're not worth their time for them to teach you it. Get out, relearn it, and when your grandkid finally understands the proper etiquette, they could come back and try again.
Now, could it be an earned arrogance?
Oh,
right?
All of that arrogance
They're
is
justified,
legitimate.
right? They're justified.
100% justified. They are known to have the gusto to back up their claims of arrogance and the power to back it up. So anyways, the High Elves... Mechanically, we'll just go over them real quick. On top of your dexterity, you get an intelligence bonus of 1. You get your elf weapon training, which most of the elves get, if not all the elves, which is your long swords, short bows, and long bows.
Each subrace for elves has their own specific weapons that they get.
Correct.
Beyond just what the class will give them.
Yeah, exactly. Then this is where it kind of takes a bit of a break away and shows just how keen on magic the High Elf is. You get 1 wizard cantrip of your choice from the wizard spell list, and intelligence is your spellcasting modifier for it. As your base class, you get 1 cantrip in the wizard spell list. It's great.
Your base race.
In your base race, yeah, sorry. You also get an extra language. This is an example of them being
this is just the intelligence,
long-lived and intelligent and studious.
Look, here's my issue with High Elves already: is that there's only one class that really leans into intelligence.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, there's 2 now.
Yeah. Okay. There's 2 now, but I mean, let's be honest. Artificer is just a fancy way of saying more wizard.
Yeah.
Wizard crafter.
Wizard with tools rather than wizard with books.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like, it's funny because with there only really being one solid intelligence option for classes, there's really only one solid intelligence option in the player's handbook for races as well. Now, there are others that will pop up.
Yeah.
There's some tiefling variants that could give you intelligence.
In the
there's
in the player's handbook.
Okay, no.
So in the very first published book that they
out of the gate,
yeah,
they were drawing wizards towards elves.
Yes,
yeah, and I mean they have been doing this from the very beginning.
I mean, it makes sense,
right?
It makes sense because they've crafted it that way.
Yes.
I could sit down and say, hey, you know what? Gnome wizard makes a fuck of a lot more sense than
Dragonborn wizard feels right to me.
Right. So anyway,
but so that is mechanically what you have there. As for flavor, specifically Forgotten Realms focused, but other things have moon elves and sun elves in them. Sun elves are the Elrons. They are the ones that are removed. They are high and mighty. So sun elves in Faerun are called Artel Kassir. They have
and that's Elvish for sun
that's
elf?
Elvish for sun elf.
Sure. Okay.
They are golden in tone. They're the ones you mentioned earlier that kind of have a little bit more of a bronzed look, and like actual bronze, not sitting in the tanning bed too long, not doing the Donald Trump orange spray down. They're like actually,
and they all have blonde hair,
or silver hair, or golden hair, or they have the deep golden eyes with a flecks of metallic essence in them.
They're gonna walk down the street in Hollywood and turn heads.
Yeah, exactly. Which is weird that, I mean, I understand they get the intelligence, makes sense. I understand they get the dexterity because they're elves, but there's a lot of lore here saying you're pretty.
Charisma is not.
I know it's not directly analogous to it, but it is still a part of what charisma is.
Nope. I'll fight you on that.
I'm with Adam on this one.
Yeah, I'll straight up fight you on. There's nothing. Look at the skills. There's nothing that says that.
Yeah, that's a holdover.
Yeah. Sorry, Dan. Look, I have untrained myself from that one because we
will fight on it later.
Yeah, all right, we'll fight on it in a future
for sure.
episode.
But sun elves themselves are sophisticated. They're elegant. They will involve themselves in high courts. They exemplify nobility. Like, these are the type of characters they are. Their backs are straight and their chins are high. That is what a sun elf is. They're beautiful. They will tend to be a little bit more of the crafters as well because they have the time to do it. And they want to work on the beauty and the art of that and create. Moon elves, on the other hand, are far more flighty. They're still high elves, and they still follow the high elf stats, but they're called silver elves commonly. They are a little bit more whimsical, a little bit more outgoing, and by a little bit, I mean a lot more outgoing.
They're a lot darker in tone too, right? By darker, I mean they're almost vampiric in physicality.
They have some of that. They're very pale. They're very
with jet black hair.
Yeah.
And strict, rigid features.
Yeah. But they're friendly, and they are. They like to. If there's a race of elf other than maybe sea elf, that is the prankster elf. It is a moon elf. They will stay in societies and they'll move around, but they will adventure and they'll move. They are the ones who suffer a lot from their wanderlust as well. And they'll stay in societies that have other sun elves and high elves in it. And they will stay there just to annoy the sun elves with their, kind of, playfulness. And then they will move on to other areas. This is not a act of conflict between the sun elf and the moon elf. It is more just like a little brother teasing the older brother.
It's in their nature.
It's just in their nature. They have like if you look inside the player's handbook, I mean the big picture of an elf, that is a moon elf there. That is there with the little rat on the stick. So I really like moon elves. They're the ones that are going to be outgoing, more adventurous, but they are also kind of otherworldly. They are the ones that are ethereal for sure. A moon elf is the elf that the farmer saw walking in the woods with the moon glowing off her skin and attracted her to him.
They're the ethereal, like, the moon elves. I mean, I know it's dusk elves in Curse of Strahd, but it's moon elves, right? Like the sad elf wandering in the mists of
they definitely have that more melancholy tone to them as well. They can, and Curse of Strahd ramps that up. I
feel like when you have high elves, you have the very composed and stoic sun elves, and the very emotional,
very
expressive moon elves.
Yes, exactly. Like if there's an elf that is going to enter a rage, it'll be a moon elf, right? So reading this, like, Moon elves interest me. Sun elves don't. So that's me. They're the wizards. They're the casters. It's weird to me that moon elves are the casters as well, but I think this is where you get they're the more
they feel more druidy.
They feel more druidy, maybe even sorcerery. But
when I see the Battle at Helm's Deep, the elves in the Battle at Helm's Deep, that's High Elves to me.
Yeah, those are Sun Elves.
Right, they're showing up with their gleaming armor, with their towering shields, with their spears or swords in hand.
We don't really have them. I mean,
they're structured in their military.
Arwen is the only moon elf that appears in Lord of the Rings, in the movies anyway, right?
Yeah. Okay, who's next?
All right, I'm up next. I've got Wood Elves. So we'll go quickly over the mechanics of Wood Elves. So their ability increased score is with Wisdom. Their weapons training.
Did you get the +1 though?
+1 to Wisdom.
Yeah.
They have weapon proficiency with a long sword, short bow, and long bow.
Same mix.
They get Fleet of Foot, which increases their base walking speed to 35 feet. Extra 5 feet around makes a big difference.
Does that make them the fastest base race in the game?
Oh, it depends. I mean, they're a freaking Eric Cocker that can fly.
Yeah, but if we're talking players,
Sea Elves can swim at 30 feet. So it depends on what you're talking about here.
Overlands, just on foot.
In terms of player's handbook, 100%. Yeah.
Handbook? Yeah. I'd have to look up Tabaxi and maybe the air.
Well, Tabaxi had that,
right? Like, there's gonna be a couple of things.
Tabaxi have feline swiftness, which is that thing that lets them move real fast for like a bonus action.
Yeah, but it's not part of their base movement.
No.
So I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah. And the last thing they get is Mask of the Wild, which is actually one of my favorite attributes of them. If they stay still, they can hide basically in the open as long as there's a mist or a rain or foliage, basically anything that would even lightly obscure you. If they stay still, they can.
So Batman's a Wood Elf. Check.
That drives me up the freaking wall as a mechanic. As a DM, what the fuck do I do with that? You don't even have a class yet. You're telling me that the cleric in shining bright armor, the Wood Elf cleric, is not going to be seen if he's standing behind cobwebs?
No, I would say the Wood Elf cleric is probably not wearing shiny armor. I don't think it's in flavor with the race.
I don't know. Elves wear metal armor.
I see them being...
But Wood Elves?
Yeah,
I still say a Wood Elf will wear metal armor. Absolutely. It may not be a breastplate made of metal, but it will definitely have metal insignias, and there will be glimmer and shine and sheen to it.
But I also picture them with a cloak, wrapping a cloak around to hide. Right, they have ways.
Yeah.
I think it's a really cool mechanic. I don't think it's going to come up a ton, but...
Oh, I think you'll have that player that wants it to. And you'll have to break them of that by level 3.
Yeah.
Right, so...
You'll find ways. I mean, and you're usually with a party anyways, right? The paladin standing next to you. If you aren't showing attention, the paladin is.
Yeah.
Wood Elves, I kind of brought it up earlier, but they are your quintessential druid, ranger, rogue.
They're outdoorsy. I can definitely see that you would end up being some sort of thief.
They're your scouts. They're the ones directing you. Thieves, right? They're the ones who are hiding in the shadows.
Yeah.
Who are finding their way through the woods or through the plains. They're your guides.
Yeah.
They're your... I mean, it's right there in the weapon proficiencies, right? You've got shortbow, longbow. There's your hunters.
Well, the High Elf has them all too, right?
They do, but... I see them as your hunters, right? They're the ones gathering your food. They're the ones protecting.
Well, that's the trope, right? That's the archetype. The Wood
Legolas
Elf is a hunter.
Is a Wood Elf.
Is a Wood Elf. I think that's why Wood Elves...
He's from the Mirkwood. He's the Wood Elf.
Yeah, Wood Elves exist for that purpose, though, right? That's the class was specifically created around that whole aesthetic.
Yeah.
Right. Wood Elf Druid, right? They're the ones who are in tune with nature. They're fleet of foot. The fact that they have that extra movement, right? It's literally called Fleet of Foot because they can step over the brook or the rocks. Or
I would play a Wood Elf over a High Elf.
Wood Elf is absolutely. I would take a Wood Elf.
Dan doesn't like playing Rangers, so Dan would rather play a Wizard than a Ranger.
No, that's wrong. I do like playing Rangers, Dwarf Rangers.
Right. So, Dan would rather play a wizard than a ranger, and therefore, because their elves are so tied to the classes that they get, that it's very difficult. even the other ones, I said we weren't going to get into it, but even Drow Rogue.
Yeah.
Like,
they're tied together.
Yeah.
Every sub race of elf has
You mean
a class,
assassin, right? Like a Drow Rogue assassin. That's
Yeah,
what
it's
they are.
specifically designed.
Yeah, and so, are you done?
Yeah, that's Wood Elves.
So this brings us to Sea Elves, and there's precious little about Sea Elves in 5th edition, to the point where there's been many complaints online.
I forgot they existed.
Yeah, there have been complaints online about how it feels like a very tacked-on afterthought in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, because the entire elf chapter talks about every other kind of elf and not Sea Elves, and yet gives a very quick stat block. Here's what we get. They are descendants of elves that were once charmed and seduced by the beauty and mystery of the sea, and now sea elves have adapted to live underwater, and are now an elusive and mysterious part of the Dungeons & Dragons aquatic scene, and they don't like Sawajin.
Wow.
That's the lore. That's what we get. And I used as many words as they did.
That's terrible. Why even have them?
Because they get because they're an old staple, they're a throwback.
They
right
really
now.
are, yeah.
And we're seeing it over and over again with elves. I feel like elves are for new players and for players that want to be pretty.
Well, they're 100% a draw for somebody who isn't familiar with familiar with fantasy but not Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. So their con is +1. So that's where they get their boost, which is cool. A dex con, I like that. That can be.
And it makes sense underwater. You're going to have some sort of constitution.
Yep. Their swim speed of 30. Well, everything underwater should have some sort of poison or toxin. So it makes sense with the con, right?
Yeah.
So they got a swim speed of 30 and they can breathe water and air. So already that's stacked. I don't need anything more on this, right? And yet there is. You are proficient with a spear, a trident, a light crossbow, and a net.
Explain the crossbow underwater to me.
Projectiles with the crossbow shoot well.
I guess, that's true.
It's your harpoon gun.
Yeah.
From medieval times, right?
Yeah.
And you get an extra language like the High Elves do, but specifically it has to be Aquan, which is one of the 4 dialects of Primordial. Mm-hmm. So it's not even really...
You speak water.
When are you going to use that?
No, it's not even that. It's not really in its own language. Mm-hmm. Like, it is because it doesn't share any of the same alphabet or anything else, but you also... So you speak Primordial, specifically Aquan, you can understand the others, because that's how it works in 5th edition. Mm. It's just weird that they don't lay that out in every single...
I would have missed that.
That is new news to me. If you speak Aquan, you could also speak... You can understand Terran.
You have very, very basic understanding of Ignan, Terran, and Orin, right? So you kind of get it. But it's all lumped under Primordial. So, and that's for your elemental chaos, the planes of fire and earth and wind and air, right? No, wind and sea. There it is. So...
Do you remember?
But here's the thing that takes this from being broken already, like super powerful. This dwarfs a human. But on top of that, you have an innate ability to communicate with any creature who has a swim speed.
What?
This is done with movements and gestures and can only get very simple ideas across, but if it is listed with a swim speed at all on a stat block.
So you do a sexy dance with a dolphin and it gets what you're doing?
Yeah.
But if you're like talking to a black dragon outside of the
Yes.
Yeah, it has a swim speed.
It has a swim speed. Isn't that broken?
That's
but
weird.
you can only talk with your body. You're not talking with words.
It says gestures and things. I would, me as a DM, I would add into that. You gotta be underwater for that to work.
I don't think so. I think that you'd be able to see the serpentine head and neck and tail of a black dragon and be able to show that, we're not here to fight, we're here to bow down, and you would know the appropriate movements to show that you are submitting to it. Right?
I mean, we're assuming that a player will even remember that they have this ability.
Oh, I know players that would want to use that in every single. You're
fighting a bunch of rock elementals. Well, let me tell you something. I'm going to try to communicate them. They don't have a swim speed. They don't have a swim speed. I don't care. I'm trying.
Can I roll for it? Is that a performance? Oh my god, I hate you already. So, but that's it. That's what we have for Sea Elves. There's very little about them, and honestly, with the exception of Swashbuckler, I can't think of anything that really, really suits them.
I can't see playing a Sea Elf outside of a pirate or Saltmarsh campaign.
Yeah. And Dan said fighter, but, and like, sure, I could make a point even for barbarian, right? For this. I think that makes a lot of sense because, I mean, the untamed nature of the sea. I'm already getting Aquaman feels from this.
What about Storm Sorcerer? Tempest Cleric.
Yeah, like, so there are some things there, but I'm feeling with the dex and the con, the ability that you have all of these ranged weapons but they're throw weapons for the most part as well. You get a crazy additional swim speed. That's extra movement to me screams rogue or ranger, right?
Monk.
Or monk. But the ability to communicate and to have this extra language and stuff doesn't scream barbarian or fighter or paladin.
I don't see any reason why I would ever play a Sea Elf. Maybe a one shot.
Yeah, and that's kind of...
I mean, if I'm playing in a water campaign, I'm probably going Triton over Sea Elf.
But again, I think these guys overshadow Tritons.
Oh, 100%.
Just mechanically.
Mechanically, but flavor-wise, I can't see myself doing it.
I don't see a difference between a Triton and a Sea Elf. I have a real issue. Yeah. I can see a difference between like a merman and a Sea Elf, definitely.
Yeah.
But what is the difference between Triton and a Sea Elf besides, I mean, and now I'm just being racist towards fantasy races, but like, besides, what do Tritons get again? Do you guys know?
No.
Probably not Dex, Con, and extra languages.
No.
Right?
They're in Volos, right?
Yeah.
Let's look it up.
We are covering Tritons in a future episode, so I don't want to do too much of a deep dive on this, but
we got to draw the comparison at the very least.
Yeah. All right, so here's what we get for Tritons. You get Strength, Con, and Charisma go up by 1. You reach maturity at 15 and live up to 200 years. You're lawful good. You are about 5 feet tall. Your size is medium. You got a swimming speed of 30 feet. You can breathe air and water. You control air and water. So you're more
elemental.
A child of the sea. You're starting at 3rd level. You can, what do you get? Fog cloud, gust of wind, wall of water over your levels. Emissary of the sea, aquatic beasts have an affinity with your people. You communicate. Same thing. Guardians of the depths. You are resistant to cold damage and you ignore the drawbacks caused by deep underwater environment. When does that come up?
Yeah.
And you can speak, read, and write common and primordial. Specifically, it says primordial in this.
So all primordial.
Yeah. So, I mean, still, do you know what's missing on that? Do you guys catch what was missing for the underwater freaking thing? Where's your damn dark vision underwater?
Yeah, right?
Wow, that is just seriously lacking, considering that they made a big deal about the depths of the ocean.
But the Sea Elves don't get that either, do they?
Yeah, they're an elf.
Oh, elf, of course.
Yeah, it's just a sub race.
It's just built in.
Yeah, that's wrong to me.
I think that's probably an oversight.
Do they use echolocation?
Oh, it clicks.
They just sound like dolphins. But no, I would choose a Sea Elf over Triton.
Yeah,
sure, you get 3 spells, but I mean, you got to be underwater. Resistance to cold is pretty powerful. Mm-hmm. It actually is pretty powerful.
The spells are pretty nice.
Yeah,
the spells are useful,
but you're not getting that advantage against being charmed. Yeah, right. And like your Fey ancestors.
But still, the number of campaigns where you're going to want to roll a character with those abilities are very specific, right?
Yeah. I think I would roll up a Triton and an Elf as a best friend duo if me and one other person in a pirate campaign wanted a shared backstory.
Yeah.
That's how I would come at these characters. So anyway, that's it for the sub races. I want to do, now we've done it differently, starting in year 2. Our shout out, it's a little bit off because what we're looking for now is, audience participation. We want you guys to write into us at info@itsamimic.com and tell us who you want us to shout out on air. because we know who we like already, and it was a little weird that we spent a full year telling you, hey, these are our favorite people on Instagram. So Dan smacked us upside the head and said, stop it with social media and just hear what the
Just a little.
hear what the people have to say. So if you go to www.itsamimic.com, you can reach us through the website, or you can reach us, like I said, at info@itsamimic.com to let us know who you want us to shout out on air. We will randomly select one person that you, I mean, if you want to send in 10 people, we'll randomly select one.
Yeah. Like if it's a happy birthday or you want to shout out your gaming group or something along those lines.
My third
That's
cousin.
what this space is going to be for.
Yep.
Yeah, your third cousin who gave you a dice once. Yeah.
Oh, it has to be D&D related?
It doesn't have to be, but I mean, we're a D&D podcast, so.
But honestly, let us know. And understand that we also record weeks and weeks and weeks in advance. So it'll be a while before it comes up again. But if you know that your brother's birthday is coming up in June, let us know in March, and we'll make sure to line that up as best we can when it airs. Also, feel free to let us know if there was something that was particularly fantastic in your own personal D&D game. If we're particularly inspired, we think that the world needs to hear about it, or at least the 7 people that listen to the podcast, then we will announce it then as well. But we know who we want to thank and who we like and who we love. And all of those people are the people that are giving us donations through the website. For those of you that don't follow the website, and haven't checked it out yet, we don't have a Patreon up and running. We don't have a Kickstarter going. We're not a GoFundMe page, but there's a little donation button. And there are some people that have accidentally stumbled upon it on the website. And you guys have been keeping the lights on for the last couple of months. And we really thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure.
It takes a lot of stress off of us, and it allows us to do more things like mailbag episodes and specials and so on and so forth, t-shirts and things. So, the more that you guys, help us out, the more that we can produce for you. And so we're hoping this is going to be a big content-packed year. And so the more donations that we're getting, the more excited we are to do it, and the more passionate we are, and the more time we're putting into it. And the more we're able to upgrade our equipment and whatnot. So thanks to everyone that's donated. We will continue to shout out you guys. If you donate, send us an email, because we can't see who the donations are from. It might just be Dan.
It's a circle.
It's just a vicious cycle.
Snake eating its own tail.
Yeah.
It's why Terry isn't here right now, because
How come we're getting all these donations of 1 cent? It works, damn it, Dan, it works.
it's a Superman 3 mentality. Yeah. All right, now let's get back into elves here. But no, seriously, before we do that, everybody reach out and let us know who you want us to shout out. And we will be happy to do that on air. Now, let's talk about in-game use of elves. We talked a little bit about how we would do it. Does it excite us as players or DMs? But let's for a moment talk about role-playing tips. What would you do to encourage people to play elves to the utmost of their ability to get the most out of this experience?
How to play the most elfy elf that ever elfed.
Exactly. Let's roll dice.
I got a 4.
I got a 14.
I got a 15.
We reversed order. I'm still in the middle.
There you go.
It's a Brad sandwich.
That's how we like it here. So, honestly, when it comes to... You all right, Dan?
Dibs on Big Spoon.
I love being Little Spoon. Is that too much information?
No. Everyone loves being Little Spoon.
Everyone loves being Little Spoon.
Little Spoon is the thing, right? Adam, interact here. Big Spoon or Little Spoon? Adam, you're not allowed to be quiet during this one, you tight-lipped little bastard. Big Spoon or Little Spoon?
Pick one.
Pick one.
Pick a side.
Pick one, Adam.
Big fork.
Oh.
Huh? So elves.
So for me, honestly, when it comes to playing an elf, it is the lifespan and the relationship with the gods that really give me 90% of what I'm looking for out of role-playing an elf. I don't play a lot of elves as a DM. I don't role-play. I tend to just ignore them and play races that interest me more. I'm more likely to give you guys dwarf NPCs and tabaxis and Goliaths and the stuff that like intrigues me because we don't see it often. The fact that elves are like in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, chapter 1 is welcome to this book. Chapter 2 is elves. And it goes for pages, right? And yet halflings get nothing, right? But there's stuff in there, but not like there is. Elves have the richest lore. They've got the best pantheon, as far as how well it's fleshed out and the details of it. They never change. Furbolgs have been different from edition to edition to edition, right? Yeah. Even Warforged are radically different now than they have been in the past. But an elf is an elf is an elf. And we know what we're getting into right from the beginning, and we still heap all of this lore on top of it. If you're going to play an elf, lean into it. Yeah. Don't just play Lord of the Rings archetype. Think about your relationship with Corellon. Think about your relationship with your family. Think about what it means to be a high elf or a wood elf or a sea elf. Your location, your geography, where you come from means a lot. Yeah. And so when you're picking your druid circle or your ranger, natural explorer terrain, you should be honest, not about where you're going, but where you're from. And hopefully your DM will acknowledge that and work with you to help that pay off, right? But seriously, I like, if you're going to be a sea elf, don't do it in a desert campaign. Don't do Curse of Strahd with a sea elf. That's weird. It's not gonna pay off the way you want it to.
No, definitely not.
Even with the +1 con, no, you're not getting what you want out of it, right? So when you're choosing an elf, if you've made the decision that you want to be beautiful, but you don't want to be an Aasimar or a
apparently tiefling for some reason.
Dragonborn. A lot of people. Dragonborns are not pretty, Dan.
No.
If you want to be Dan.
Well, Dan's got his own tastes.
Dan's not a furry. He's a scaly.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. So,
he likes him dry.
So if you're going to be an elf, really look at the relationship with the gods, look at your longevity and what that means in your family circle and the society that you're from and why you've left it and how that impacts your own personal journey. But again, the location you're from. Mm-hmm. These are the things that are going to give you everything that you need to know about being an elf, because you'll be able to extrapolate all of the rest. The attitude towards other races, your degree of arrogance will come from your geography and your attitude towards the gods, right? There are so many things we've talked about on this episode already, which are subtly changed from one to another. If you end up in a party with 6 elves, they could all be radically different from each other.
And some serious conflict, too.
Right, and I think that would be a really interesting way of having a party come together. I always like the idea of there being 6 clerics in a party, because they're so different.
Each one with a different deity, difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, and different spells and different class features.
So many ways to build one.
Yeah, and I think you can do that with elves.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so straightforward. And that just how different they all are from each other. And so really lean into why you've chosen this subclass. And if you're doing it, I said it before, if I was going to play an elf, I'd do it for the mechanical boon. Mm-hmm. And then I said for a one shot, because that is a shitty reason to build a character.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, look, if that's how you do it and you want to be tactical, more power to you. But we're talking role play inspiration here.
Good thing we don't have any min-maxers here.
Yeah. Daniel.
I don't play elves. We already established that.
But they don't get a breath weapon that I could abuse.
I never use the breath weapon on Rezu.
That's because he was frozen in stone for 18 years.
That's true.
Yeah.
Anyways, Brad, how do you feel? What are your roleplay tips?
So I'm going to kind of follow up with that. I actually really like the idea of playing an aged elf. An experienced elf. I would lean into that with my roleplay. So right from character creation, I wouldn't make that young, just starting out adventurer elf. I would make an elf who's towards the end of his adventuring career, ready to tie it up, going out for one last hurrah. And I would lean on that wisdom. I would lean on the arrogance. I would lean on also the grace, right? They carry themselves with a dignity, with it's a sense of pride, but it's an earned pride, like we've kind of discussed earlier. I would really lean into that. Rather than being this brash, young adventurer who's going to rush head first, he's going to sit back for a second and say, taco's good out here, to steal from the Nakaroys.
Yeah.
But he would be a thinking adventurer. We don't get a lot of thinking adventurers.
Yeah, and that's one of the things it is built into the lore. We kind of skimmed over it. It was mentioned, but we didn't spend a whole lot of time looking at it. They would rather use diplomacy than
100%,
violence every time.
Yeah.
Right? And they will beat you at diplomacy too because they know all the etiquette and they're
For sure.
They've
played this game before.
Yes, and they've had the experience, right? Because of their age.
They've lost a lot of battles. They've won a lot of battles. They know.
So do you guys think that elves are a delicacy for mind flayers, just as a sidebar?
Oh.
Just because of all the memories that they have?
100% yes. Yeah. Why else do you think mind flayers really like the Underdark?
Because they go after drow is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They would be like a buffet. All you can eat buffet.
Yeah. Okay.
Could you overeat?
Oh yeah, it's like having too much of a really good cheesecake. Like the first slice of a good cheesecake is brilliant.
Oh my god, there's a plot hook for you. You come across the bad guy that has been stealing elves and torturing them. It's the Lich that tortures elves for hundreds of years so that he can feed all of these tortured, insane minds to mind flayers and infect the elder brain with insanity.
Jeez. That's brilliant.
I don't know how it worked into a campaign right off the top of my head, but that I'm intrigued. I can write a novel off that shit.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, for me, when I play elves, like I've said this before for inspiration.
You don't play elves.
Oh, sorry. When I play elves, when I want to give character to an elf, I am going to go back to the heroes of stoicism that are in my mind, like I'm playing a Greek philosopher. I'm playing Elrond. I'm playing
I'm pretty sure that
Rufus from Bill and Ted's.
Most Greek philosophers were chronic masturbators. They're not
100%.
Yeah, they're not really stoic in my mind.
No,
I'm not sure where you're going with that one.
I would study more Greek philosophy. Anyways, like I'm going with the character who would rather stand back and have discourse rather than don't go there. Rather than drawing a blade and drawing blood. Like the character I would have is I would not play on the wood elf side of things.
So then would you be looking at the bard then with the intelligence and the College of Lore, cutting remarks or cutting words and
it's very like dry, like.
Yes.
Did I just get insulted? I think that was an insult.
Yeah.
And that's how their cutting words hurt. Right? Like, oh, so that's how you do it. That's a way.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah. Their cutting words is,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's actually kind of fun.
Yeah. So, in terms of roleplay ideas, like, really play into the aloof, really play into the philosopher side of things, the artist, the intellectual dynamo of them is what I would do. Less on the fact that they can absolutely destroy you in a fist fight because they're so agile and dexterous, because of course they can.
But why bother? It's too simple.
It's too simple.
It's too barbaric.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got a question.
So would you take the cloistered scholar then? Background?
Or noble.
Noble.
I would take noble. I take cloistered scholar. I take sage. I would take acolyte in some respects. Like, hermit works in my mind for some elves.
I mean, Outlander will work for wood elves.
Outlander, yeah.
For sure.
But I mean, Outlander works for every freaking build, no matter, anyway.
Because that's what everyone wants to be.
But okay, you brought up this good point about leaning into the aloof side of things, but then we talked about some elves can be swashbucklers or moon elves are very in your face and whatnot. So again, it comes down to what your subrace is.
Yeah.
There does not seem, while there are definite consistencies, they seem to be almost background noise compared to the sub-race specificity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So while there is this common theme in the background that unites all elves, is a sea elf as elusive or as aloof as a moon elf or as a sun elf? And the answer is no. So they're surprisingly, as much as we all said, the basic trope and here's elves, we started this whole conversation on, we all know what elves are. There's actually some variety here, right?
There is.
And so I get that Dan's
more than any other race.
Well, that's because they've gotten more time than any other race in the freaking material,
but
right?
Even just looking at the breakdown of the sub races, each one so much lends itself to a specific
there
class.
Are two races that are more well-defined than elves are, and only two. There are a shit ton of tieflings.
Yep.
And there are, mechanically, it doesn't matter.
No.
But for flavor purposes, there are a metric ass load of humans. There are so fucking many humans.
Yeah.
Right? And so we're going to cover humans in one of these episodes, and I'm sitting there going, man, if we're going to get through it in one episode, we've got to just motor, because there are over 18, there's 24 maybe different kinds of humans.
Yeah.
And I think that people see human, text, variant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Which one gives me the feet?
Yeah, exactly. And so, but for elves, you don't have that option. I really wish that all of the elven subraces were all collected together somewhere so that you could kind of see the contrast of them.
D&D Beyond is good for that, actually. That's where I was going. When you pull up the elf section, they're all in a list.
Are they all... Is there a difference between Eberron, elf?
Yes, they're actually separated out. I didn't want to dive into this podcast because
I do want to know this. What other elves are out there besides?
Hold on.
There's 4 different houses in Eberron that are.
I've got it right here.
Yeah. But they do specify that.
Oh yeah, very much so.
And tell you what their marks do, what their
yeah. Look, we covered that.
Not even drag marks. Just the elves themselves have variant.
Yeah. There are radically drow or just the elves from that forest. In Eberron, right? We covered all this in the Eberron episode, but
but they'll go through wood elves from Varial and wood elves from Ashtuna or whatever it is,
and then also wood elves from each of those, high elves from each of those. It breaks them right down, right? You got Irani high elves, Irani wood elves, Irani.
You know what?
Sea elves.
Look, I do not like technology at the table, but I can understand then why. When you want a specific flavor of elf, particularly, I don't think that you need D&D Beyond to be able to figure out what kind of gnome you want to play.
No.
But for elves, they're really varied. Mm-hmm. There are a ton of different options out there.
Well, for the Eladrin, I know this is going to be another episode, but they get into all the different, autumn,
seasons,
winter, spring, right?
Yeah. So no, that's really cool. I'm glad that it is compiled somewhere in an official medium.
Yep.
Because it could be. I mean, you go to Mordenkainen's for some of them, but there's also the different modules and the different campaign settings.
Yeah.
And I think it's a Prince of the Apocalypse breakdown Sun and Moon elves in greater detail, and there's a wealth of information out there, and you really have to look around to find it.
Yeah.
So it's not just what's in the player's handbook. The same way that, do people know that there are subclasses in the Dungeon Master's Guide?
Yeah.
But I don't think people realize that
your players don't.
No, that you
everyone's sitting there going, "How do I be? What was it? The
Oathbreaker
Paladin?"
Yeah.
I don't find this in any book. That's because only DMs can be Oathbreakers. People.
Yeah. So anyway,
fight me, Joe.
So do you guys have one interesting NPC that you would add?
Oh yeah.
Roll for it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. One Elven NPC. Oh, did I catch a nat 20?
You did get a nat 20, and Dan both got 12s. All right, I'm going last. I got 6.
All right.
Nat 20, Adam, what do you got?
I want the purveyor of fine antiquities, High Elf. And I don't think I'm breaking anybody's mind with this, but I just like the man that sits there and doesn't say anything off to the side. You've got an auctioneer, and you've got people that are bringing items out to be auctioned off, and you've got a couple of bouncers in the back that are, I don't know, Goliaths or whatever. And then there's the one.
It's Antiques Roadshow.
Yeah, but there's just that one very thin elf over the corner, and he's a sun elf, and he's just sitting there watching. And every once in a while, somebody looks at him and he gives a slight nod, and then that gives them permission to do something, right? He is so noble, he never speaks. And if your players ever wanted to meet with him, they have to arrange an interview. Mm-hmm. And even then, he will not speak with them directly. He will send an attendant. And I really like the idea of feeling the power of this high elf, but never being good enough to meet him. Like, just really lay that. It's not even arrogance. It's just we're of different worlds. Yeah. And your world is all the way down there.
You have no information that I need. Yeah. I have everything that you need, but I don't want to waste my time.
And I feel like you would get a message from him, be like, you have returned these items to him, and he's going to give you a great reward. It's back at the inn. Go check with the person at the front desk. And you show up, and there's an envelope and a big bag of gold coins. And then it says, thank you very much for helping. And it's written in this beautiful script. Yeah. And if you ever have any needs in the future, make sure to please contact one of these people. My house is very thankful for it, so and so on. Dictated, but not read. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah, right. Like that is the kind of shit that I want from this.
Yeah, for sure.
Who is he shows up in the limo, does a lap of the party, and walks out again. Yeah. Right? Don't even give the keys to the valet. We will not be here long. I merely need to make an appearance. Mm-hmm. Right? And then
won't shake a hand, won't talk to any. Maybe the host, he may speak a word to.
He'll give that little head nod, mm-hmm. and maybe the crack of a smile, and that is it. And then everyone for the next season talks about the robes he was wearing. Yep, mm-hmm. Right. That is the high elf. If you're gonna go high, get fucking baked. Right? Yeah. Like so. That's where I'm coming out with the.
Cool. My idea was. Funny enough, the exact opposite. I have the
low elf.
Well, kind of a moon elf, hobo. Funny enough. This is, I would play him as kind of a bit of a soothsayer. He is, yelling end times on the corner of the street, but because, he has, covered up his ears, he's covered up himself in rags, he's filthy and whatnot. People don't pay attention to him, but this guy is actually a wealth of information. And yeah, he may be a little bit off kilter because he spent too long doing this. He's probably near the end of his life. And some of this
is he a diviner?
Long look of, well, I don't even know if he's necessarily a diviner.
He's just seen the patterns of society before.
Because he's old. He is so old. And no one listens to him because he's a moon elf, he's a little bit more ethereal, he's removed, he's supernatural.
I love the idea,
pushes people away from him just because he's just kind of not right.
I like the idea too of my great grandfather told stories of him, right?
Yeah, right. And he just travels the countryside, giving little tidbits of information, and then gone, right? Or sits on a corner street for the corner of a street for a year. Saying his things, and eventually will bring a crowd, and once he sees the crowd getting too big, he gets creeped off and runs away.
What is creeped off?
Creeped out and runs away.
Okay. There's one in every episode.
You're doing this on purpose, aren't you?
Maybe. So yeah, that's mine. I really like the idea of, and like he'll see this high elf character going around being all pomp and, being a bit of a ponce, and he will go through and he will, flatten one of his tires. There's not tires in D&D, Dan. He'll like move the wheel of the axle, just like warp the wood just a little bit so that the cart shakes.
Then he dispels magic on one of the wheels that lets the cart fly. Right?
Yeah.
No. That's the D&D version.
Yeah. He whispers into the horse's ear to just take the most unceremoniously huge shit right as the guy's getting in and everyone's looking at the cart. Like something along those lines where he's just tweaking this guy just a little bit, and then he'll just go. And he's just that thorn in the side that comes by. Like I love this character. And I wouldn't even broadcast that he's an elf for the first little bit. Like the players would have to come
to interact with him.
How do you know so much? Well, I've seen it. Well, how have you seen it? It's happened before, just with different players and different people, but this happens all the time. right? You just have to live long enough to see the patterns.
See, the thing that I really like about that is that gives rich history and a sense of a lived-in world. Mm-hmm. The fact that we've been here before and will be here again. Yeah. And elves would know that, especially in a city of humans.
Deckard Cain. That is kind of where I'm going with this. You don't really know Diablo all that much.
No. Sit a while and listen.
Yeah.
Go fuck yourself, Dan. I spent more time on Diablo than you ever did.
Probably not.
I might play with Diablo 2?
Yeah,
Diablo 2?
Years.
Yep, you're preaching to the choir on this one.
Yeah. Then WoW came out, and
I still play Diablo 2.
And now I'm 34. Anyways.
WoW came out and you got married.
Yep.
Yeah. Happens to the best of us.
Yep. Bradley, what you got for us, bro?
I'm envisioning a traveling minstrel. This lore bard. This elf, again, who's lived. He's not ancient. He's still young. He's still spry, but he's lived long enough to have stories. He's adventured. He's followed parties, and he just loves to collect this lore. It's all living in his head. None of it's written down. It's all in song. It's all in rhyme. It's all in poetry. Mm-hmm. He is just this collector of information. He is not going on an adventure for the sake of the adventure. He's going on an adventure for the story.
He's the dead NPC that follows the party for a couple of levels.
That's right. Just enough to get the story, get the information, write a song about it, and then he moves on to the next one.
He's Yaskier.
Yeah.
Without being as...
Yeah. Bubbly. He's not as... I don't think he's quite as bubbly. Like, he's not the sleeping with the barmaids. He's not the seducing his way through. Yeah. He is simply... He's out to enjoy a story. He realizes that life itself is a story. There's a story to be told. There's an overarching plot in life, and he wants to just take those pieces and see if he can put them together. He's seen adventuring parties come and go. He has a song for every single one, and he remembers all of history. And it's none of it.
And like, he's the one that knows the ancient song of the blank. Yeah. Right? Like,
you ask about a lost sword, and he has a song about it. Mm-hmm. And it's convoluted. It's not direct. He's not going to tell you exactly where the sword is. But he will sing the song of the party that lost the sword. And somewhere in there is the information that you need to pull out.
I like that. Yeah. I like that. The other one that I was thinking of as we're sitting here talking is the high elf that was that rot low, who is a indentured servant of a human. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, right. Like the humans came.
What could he possibly have done?
He swore he swore a blood oath to someone's great grandfather, who was a grand warrior of whatever. And then he died.
Great grandson's just a shit.
Oh, absolutely.
Just a waste of skin.
An entitled little fuck who's just
Prince Joffrey
living off great grandpa's
no
greatness.
It's not even Prince Joffrey. It's Robin from Game of Thrones. Aunt Lisa's milk suckling little like that's the guy
going through the moon door.
Exactly right. Yeah. That's I like the idea of the sun elf that has I pledge myself to your house for 300 years. It's year 297, and he is just so fucking ready to get out, right? Excuse me, I want more honey. And like that fucking character. I think that is a great NPC dynamic.
What does he do on day 300 or year 301?
Like the moment
the house burns the fuck down.
No, I think that he would leave, and then he would have to turn around and come back because it will not function without him. And he is a part of this house now. Like
he is as much of the house as the foundation is.
Yeah, and he can't. He's the only reason that there's been any prosperity for this house has been his efforts for the last 300 years. And now here he is ready to walk away. But if he goes, all of it was for nothing. And now he has to stay. Isn't that horrible?
That's heartbreaking.
Oh shit! I love it.
I love that guy, but I feel so bad for him.
I do too.
Oh man, I'm having so much fun with fucking with elves today.
Yeah.
So that should have been the title of the episode, "Fucking with Elves" today. So, is there anything else that you guys want to say to wrap up this episode?
Man, like I'm not a huge fan of elves. I've made that abundantly clear. I mean, as an NPC, they're great.
Hold on. I skipped the thing.
Yeah, the characters.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So, really quickly now, to wrap up, but before we finish off this incredibly long episode, what is the non-standard character build that you want to see? Let's roll for it one last time.
16.
10. What do I get? 6. Oh, 9. Sorry, you got a 9, but you're still last.
Matter. Yeah.
Damn.
Sea elf monk. I love the idea.
It's a sea monkey?
Well, yes. But I love the idea. And like, this is like stereotypical, like, path of the open hand monk. And this guy it's a river campaign, it's a water campaign. You have to have that with the monk, with the sea elf. But he is leaping out of the water, grappling and dragging people down. And that is his entire thing. Trying to get them down underwater or pummeling them underwater, bringing people into his realm to fight them. And he's all about, I live on both lands, but I'm better on one than you are for sure. And I'm going to bring you there. Right? I also love the idea of like him running this monastery underwater that is airlocked. Like you could get in, walk around and breathe air in it. But you got to swim to get to it. And it is a trial to get in. So as a player character, his whole goal is to gain enough power to get down to this monastery again. Like he has memories of it from maybe a past life or a life long ago, or many years past, or heard a story about it, and he just remembers someone mentioning about this monastery, and his goal in life is to find this monastery to be able to grow as his abilities as a martial artist. And he is a little quippy, a little fun and flippant, but when it comes down to a fight, he is smooth. He is like water. He flows around the battlefield. Just as a fun little like one-shot character, I would love to play this guy. Long term, I don't like playing elves, so probably not. But what intrigues me the most, like we were talking, wizard makes sense, druid makes sense, ranger makes sense, fighter I guess could make a little bit of sense, rogue I guess can make a little bit of sense. Monk's the one that kind of sits out for me, and I'm like, well, why not try it? See what kind of martial arts master you can be when you don't have to worry about time.
That's true. Monks are not known for meditating.
Well, that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
But a human monk is still going to die at 80 years.
That's true.
Right? They're going to, a human has a very, very strict timeline on when they can master this art form. The sea elf doesn't.
No.
He can take his time, learn a couple, right? Mm-hmm. Become a master of a few of them, right? I don't know. That would be my character there. Who was next?
I was next. I want to go against the grain a little bit and go, you named all the ones that kind of make sense. Barbarian. You don't generally think of elves as creatures of rage. You think of them as under control, well-defined. But I want to take it one step further and actually feed a little bit into the elven trope with the barbarian, because I wanted to go Path of the Ancestral Guardian. There we go. So that's what I was picturing, right? He's able to summon the memories of elves gone by, of the order gone by. I also picture him as being a knight of an order, where he has this whole order of elves that have gone before him, but he has this rage inside of him.
He's the last one of the order.
Is,
and
exactly.
And like, that's where his rage comes from, is the fact that his order is dead with him.
That's right.
But is also alive with him.
Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of where I wanted to go with that.
Cool.
He
I like that.
carries this history with him, right? He obviously has the age and the experience. And again, this would be one towards the end of that. You know, he'd be about 400 to 500 years old, somewhere in that range. Maybe pushing up against 6.
He's got those 3 gray hairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the character I want to play. He's
glancing
with a double-bladed scimitar as well, right? I picture his...
He's Darth Maul.
I wasn't picturing Darth Maul, no, but I like it.
double-bladed sword dude just like walking down the street.
But it's a dance, right?
Yeah. Oh, of course.
I mean, it's not a blade singer, but it is a dance, right? It's this beautiful. Again, I would build him with a dex-based barbarian versus a strength-based barbarian. But again,
which is hard to do.
It
is hard to make a dex-based barbarian for sure. But I mean,
I was trying to build this character, and I basically started him at 8th level. I don't think I would want to start much lower than that. I'd want to have a high enough dex. I'd want to have feet for the double blade scimitar to be a master.
No, I get it. Yep.
All right, so I had an answer, and then you guys were talking, and then something struck me, and I'm like, that's a really cool idea. I'm going to pitch that at the end. Jaime Lannister was a high elf.
Oh, yes.
And I think that his story is the story that I would play sans the incest, right? Yeah. If we can pull away all of that creepy stuff, but I love my sister more than I love anything else. She is my twin. We are soul bonded.
Yes.
And I will do anything to protect her. And I think that he goes out there and he has that moment of suddenly learning because he's egotistical and he is the best champion fighter that exists. Even at level 1, he walks out amongst the rest of the party and says, watch and learn. I will do this and I will teach you how to do it. And you will love me for it because I am the best thing that exists. And he's got those little quips and those little, is that how you do it up in the north? And then he goes off and he whoops your ass. And I think that is just a really fun build. But then the idea of him losing his hand and then there's Lady Brienne and the romance there with the mundane human that was ironically called Brienne the Beauty, who's traditionally not as beautiful as what he is used to and stuff. I love the idea of him struggling with all of these. And he is the kind of guy that would look at that dragon on the battlefield and go, I'm the only one that can end this. I'm going to do it right now. And he won't, he'll die. Right. Yeah. But that is his mentality. That is, what am I now that I have no hand? This was my sword fighting hand. And struggling with that and relying on the rogue to help him do dirty work and stuff that is beneath him and he would never do. Right. And he still has his morality. He's horrified by the acts of war that have to be accomplished. I just really think that Jaime Lannister would be a really cool high elf and like a sun elf.
You got 7 full seasons to pull on for inspiration there. It's great.
And at least that number of times we're going to make that joke. But no, the other thing that occurred to me, and bear with me on this because it's a little outside of the box. If you knew that you would get to play this on multiple level 1 to 20 campaigns in a row, and you play the same elf.
Yes.
However, the thing is that you have decided to, and Dan's like, how would that work? Here's what you do. You take one...
Multi-class, but not multi-class?
You multi-class all of them. And then you decide, hey, you know what? I really enjoyed these skills that the ranger has, and so I'm going to devote my life to this. And so you end up with level 1 artificer, barbarian, bard, cleric, druid. You're one of everything. And 7 levels of ranger, or I guess it would be 8. 8 levels of ranger, for example. You go, that's interesting. But honestly, at the end, I mean, I don't think you could get sorcerer out of that. And
warlock.
No, you can still do it with warlock and be like, I'm done with this patron. And you could let go of your levels and say, you know what, between campaign 1 and campaign 2, I spent 30 years studying as a monk of instead of the way the open palm, I've decided to go shadow
elements.
Yeah, or whatever, the 4 elements, whatever it is, right? So I've done this instead. So I've let go of everything else and just studied for 30 years on this. And now this is what I do. I can tell you stories of when I was at 8th level. I was level 20 this with 8 levels of whatever. And I can tell you these grand stories of the things that I've done in my past. And this is why you have a level 1 character with epic freaking backstory levels.
Cool.
And then you could honestly chain campaigns with the same character going, yes, I've been here before. This reminds me of the time. And then you name drop someone from 6 campaigns ago, right? I think that would be a really fun, it'd be a really interesting way of approaching D&D if you knew you had the time to do it. You would have to be an elf in real life. To chain that shit together, right?
It would be amazing to have a character who, as the party is getting exposition on this history, the wizard or the elf just goes, "Oh yeah, I was there.
Yeah.
I remember that." Yeah.
And I think that maybe I would have to do it with an NPC elf. Mm-hmm. There's just that one NPC elf that has been in every.
Well, I mean, you could do that, right? Every campaign, if you have the same group of players, right? Every campaign, they keep meeting the same elf.
Yeah.
Even though
if you're planning on playing like a long-term, several campaign arc campaign, and you're starting off at the beginning, and you know you're about to go on the long slog, you've got experience with your group around you. You know that this is almost a certain thing. This is going to happen. Yeah, throw in that elf in like session 2.
No.
And just let them build that relationship over years.
Yeah, and he starts off arrogant, and then and they don't really like him at first, and then he kind of earns it, and he's a Deus Ex Machina a couple of times, right? Oh, and so and so they learn to trust him, they learn to love him, they go to him for advice, and so I think that would be really cool. But I really like the idea of a player trying to pull that shit off too.
Yeah,
campaign after campaign after campaign.
Wait, if you killed the ancient red dragon with your sword, how come you're casting freaking shillelagh?
Oh, I've given up that life.
Yeah,
that's behind me.
It no longer interests me.
See, I have the opposite problem though as a player. I could not play that character because I love rolling new characters. So the thought of playing a campaign with the same character I played previously.
As a forever DM, I don't understand your issue.
That's true. You just
Hey, you're about to play. You're about to finally roll some dice.
Yeah, eventually.
In a couple weeks here, you're going to be running 3-4 months. You get to be a player.
I am looking forward to it. I'm a DM burnout. Anyway, that's it for part 1 of our discussion on elves. Okay, the next time we circle back to discussing D&D races, we'll be coming back to elves, and we'll be addressing Drow and the Shatterkai and the Eladrin. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, and dozens of other podcast apps. You can also find us at itsamimic.com or email us at info@itsamimic.com. Thanks very much for listening to the It's a Mimic podcast, and make sure to check us out next week when we are circling back to Eberron and we are covering artificers. Or, for Terry, artificers.
Artificers?
What is one survivalist tip that you have in real life about getting lost in the wilderness? Because I've got a Boy Scout background, and so does Dan, and we play D&D, and we see people roll survival checks, and they're, oh, I'm going to build a fire. And I'm like, yeah, from where? I'm going to go into the lake and get driftwood. I'm like, no, you're not. That's wetwood, right? So what is it? What is your thing that you would tell people that they probably don't understand about real survival tips?
Mine's kind of a weird one, but as somebody who's not super keen on survivalism, is that a word?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, sure.
You can be a survivalist. So
yeah,
sure,
let's go with that.
You said survivalist earlier, and I'm like, are you talking like a person who survives? Or are you talking like this is the survivalist thing you could possibly do?
No.
Like the most
survivalist, not survivalist.
Oh, okay, cool.
Anyways, I was thinking, we live in an area that's very mountainous. People get lost in the mountains all the time. And what they always say, the number one tip, if you're lost in the mountains, stay put, because the search and rescuers will find you. So it's not great for necessarily, a ranger out in the woods. He's probably the one doing the search and rescue. But my survival tip, because I'm an idiot in the woods, stay put.
Fair enough. For me, I don't know, man. Like Adam said, we both have a history of
being Boy Scouts.
I don't know, man. Learn your knots. I think that would be my big one. You could do a world of good with 3 knots. If you learned,
thou shalt not pass.
No,
with a K.
Steal. With a K.
Like Brad. Tying the knot?
No, not like getting married. Well, yes, actually tying the knot, but not like the euphemism tying, the idiom getting tied knot, but like literally tying knots.
Like a clove hitch.
Like a clove hitch and a bowline and a sheep shank and those kind of things. Like learn some good knots. You can, if you are in an area with cedar, you could strip it off. Cedar has you could identify it with having, it's a tree that has lines on the bark. There's vertical lines all through it. You pull that off and you'll find that you could actually get fibers from the bark. You could fold those together, make rope with it, and thus make have something to tie your knots with that'll help you keep your shelter above your head. Brad, you're right. Stay put, but try to get shelter. And you could even fashion fire starters and everything else just from ropes and sticks. So, I mean, it's not hard to do with 3 knots. So go out there, learn some knots. That would be my biggest survivalist tip.
I can tie my shoes. Is that a step in the right direction?
Tying your shoes very close to a bow line. So sure, I guess. It's like a half bow line. Anyways.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, there's some common sense ones, like, do not get wet under any circumstances.
Yeah, stay dry.
If you are lost, you are fucked, right? Like, if you get wet. Like,
if you are noticing you're sitting in a actual depression in the ground, don't.
Yeah.
Because
like,
especially if you're in the Northwest, it'll rain and that will collect water and you will get wet.
if you have to leave food unattended because you're sleeping or walking, you hang it from a branch that is not near the trunk of the tree.
With some rope.
Yeah, or long grasses that you fashion, like whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Just, you hang it, you don't prop it up, you don't put it up in a tree, they're still gonna get to it. Everything in the forest can climb. But the thing, my big thing is, water is downhill.
Yes.
Visibility is uphill. So if you're lost in the woods and you want to be visible, like, yes, stay put, but stay put at a higher elevation if
Somewhere you can be seen.
easily seen. And if you get so desperate that you become thirsty, you go downhill. Water flows downhill, right? You find rivers and valleys. Mm-hmm. That's how it works. And that's also a good tip, I guess, for DMs designing like wilderness encounters is there's water in the valley.
Yeah.
There's not water flowing over mountains.
No.
Although, maybe in the Feywild.
Thank you for listening to an It's a Mimic production.
Okay, you're done. Get it.